Hello and welcome to English Flow Podcast. I'm excited to share with you the inspiring story of Maya, a determined young woman from Mumbai who transformed her English skills through an incredible journey in Toronto, Canada. Through Maya's adventures, you'll discover powerful techniques and practical methods that will help you improve your English naturally and effectively. Maya's story is not just about learning English, it's about discovering confidence, making connections, and unlocking opportunities. As we follow her journey, you'll learn the same strategies she used to go from struggling with basic conversations to speaking fluently and confidently. So grab your notebook, get comfortable, and let's dive into Maya's transformative English learning adventure. My name is Maya, and I want to share with you the most transformative period of my life. I'm a computer science graduate from Mumbai, India, and this is the story of how I conquered my fear of English and discovered methods that completely changed my language learning experience. It was a rainy, monsoon evening in Mumbai when I made a decision that would change everything. I was sitting in a coffee shop near my university, scrolling through job postings on my laptop. Every exciting position I found had the same requirement: excellent English communication skills required. My heart sank each time I read those words. I had studied English in school for years, but when it came to speaking, I felt paralyzed. I could read English texts fairly well, and I understood most of what I heard, but speaking was my biggest nightmare. My pronunciation was unclear. I struggled to find the right words, and I often mixed up grammar rules. The fear of making mistakes kept me silent in most situations. That evening, I decided enough was enough. I had saved money from part-time work, and I made a bold decision. I would go to Toronto, Canada, to study English intensively for 6 months. My family thought I was crazy to spend so much money just to learn English, but I knew this was my chance to break through the barriers that were holding me back. 3 weeks later, I was on a plane to Toronto, nervous but excited about the journey ahead. As the plane descended into Pearson Airport, I looked out the window at the sprawling city below and whispered to myself, "Maya, this is where your new life begins." The first few days in Toronto were overwhelming. Everything was different. The accent, the speed of conversations, the cultural references. I stayed in a small apartment near downtown Toronto, and even simple tasks like ordering food or asking for directions became major challenges. On my third day, something happened that motivated me even more. I was at a Tim Hortons coffee shop, trying to order a simple coffee and donut. The young man behind the counter spoke quickly, and I couldn't understand what he was asking me. I stood there confused, holding up the line, feeling embarrassed as other customers waited impatiently behind me. Finally, a kind elderly woman helped translate what the cashier was saying. I felt grateful but also determined. I knew I needed to find an effective way to improve quickly. That weekend, I researched English schools in Toronto and found the perfect English Institute downtown. What attracted me to this school wasn't just their modern facilities or convenient location, it was their philosophy. Their website promised natural language acquisition through real communication, which sounded exactly like what I needed. Monday morning arrived, and I walked into the Perfect English Institute with butterflies in my stomach. The building was modern and welcoming, with students from all over the world chatting in the common areas. I could hear different languages mixing with English: Spanish, Mandarin, Arabic, Portuguese. And I realized I wasn't alone in this journey. My teacher's name was Sarah Chen, an enthusiastic woman in her early 30s who had grown up bilingual in English and Mandarin. She had studied linguistics at the University of Toronto and had been teaching English to international students for over 8 years. What made Sarah special wasn't just her expertise. It was her genuine passion for helping students discover their voice in English. "Welcome, everyone," Sarah said as we settled into our classroom. There were 12 students from 8 different countries: Brazil, South Korea, Mexico, Japan, Saudi Arabia, France, Germany, and me from India. Before we begin, I want you to forget everything you think you know about learning English. This caught my attention immediately. Sarah continued, "Most of you have spent years studying English grammar rules, memorizing vocabulary lists, and taking tests. But can you have a natural conversation with a native speaker? Can you express your thoughts and feelings fluently? If the answer is no, then it's time to try a completely different approach." She walked around the classroom, making eye contact with each student. "In this course, you won't find traditional grammar exercises or vocabulary drills. Instead, you'll learn English the same way children learn their first language, through meaningful communication, natural repetition, and real-life practice." Sarah explained her teaching philosophy. Language is not a subject to be studied. It's a tool to be used. When you use English to express genuine thoughts, share real experiences, and connect with others, your brain naturally absorbs the patterns, rhythms, and structures of the language. This is called acquisition, not learning, and it's much more powerful than traditional studying methods. I was fascinated. This was completely different from my school experience in India, where we focused heavily on grammar rules and written exercises, but rarely practiced speaking. "Today, we're going to talk about what you're passionate about," Sarah announced. "I want each of you to share something you love, a hobby, a dream, a memory, anything that excites you. Don't worry about making mistakes. Focus only on communicating your ideas." When my turn came, my heart was racing. I talked about my love for photography and how I dreamed of traveling the world to capture different cultures through my camera lens. As I spoke, Sarah nodded encouragingly, and I noticed that my classmates were genuinely interested in what I was saying. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about grammar rules. I was just communicating. After each student shared, Sarah said something that changed my perspective completely. "Did you notice that everyone understood everyone else, even though you all made mistakes? This is proof that communication is about connection, not perfection. When you focus on sharing your authentic self, the language becomes a bridge, not a barrier." On Tuesday, one of my classmates, Marcus from Brazil, asked a question that I had been wondering about too. "Sarah, I read English articles and watch English videos every day, but I still struggle to remember new words when I'm speaking. What's the most effective way to build vocabulary?" Sarah smiled. "Marcus, you've asked one of the most important questions in language learning. The secret to building lasting vocabulary isn't memorization. It's what I call contextual absorption." She walked to the whiteboard and wrote, "Traditional method versus natural method." Traditional vocabulary learning, she explained, involves memorizing word lists, flashcards, and isolated definitions. This might help you pass a test, but it doesn't help you use words naturally in conversation. Natural vocabulary acquisition happens when you encounter words in meaningful contexts repeatedly. Sarah introduced us to what she called the reading flow method. She explained, "Research shows that people who read for pleasure for just 30 minutes daily acquire vocabulary 4 times faster than those who rely on traditional study methods. But there's a specific technique that makes reading even more powerful. She handed out copies of a fascinating article about wildlife photography in Kenya. "Maya," she said, "since you mentioned your love for photography yesterday, this article might interest you." As I read, I encountered several unfamiliar words: magnificent, elusive, pristine, and breathtaking. Instead of immediately reaching for a dictionary, Sarah taught us her unique approach. When you encounter an unknown word, she explained, first try to understand the general meaning from context. Then, and only then, look up the precise definition. But here's the crucial part. Don't write the word in a notebook. Instead, read the sentence containing that word 3 more times, paying attention to how it connects with the surrounding words. I followed her instructions. When I encountered elusive in the phrase, "The elusive leopard disappeared into the dense forest," I first guessed it meant something like hard to find based on the context. Then I confirmed this with the dictionary definition: difficult to catch or achieve. Finally, I reread that sentence 3 times, feeling how elusive fit perfectly with leopard, and disappeared. "Your brain is incredibly sophisticated," Sarah continued. "When you understand words in context and encounter them repeatedly in natural situations, they become part of your active vocabulary automatically. The word elusive will now connect in your mind not just with its definition, but with leopards, forests, and the feeling of something being hard to catch." She was right. Throughout the week, I noticed myself using elusive naturally. Sarah also taught us about word families and collocations. Instead of learning individual words, we learned how words naturally group together. For example, we didn't just learn the word heavy, we learned heavy rain, heavy traffic, heavy responsibility, and heavy accent. This made our speech sound much more natural and native-like. By the end of the week, I realized I was acquiring new vocabulary effortlessly, just by reading interesting materials and paying attention to how words work together. The best part was that these words felt natural when I used them in speaking. They weren't foreign additions to my vocabulary, but integrated parts of my growing English ability. Wednesday brought another breakthrough moment. During class, Kim, a quiet student from South Korea, raised her hand nervously. "Sarah, I understand almost everything I read and hear in English, but I'm embarrassed to speak because my pronunciation is so poor. Native speakers often can't understand what I'm trying to say. Is there any way to improve pronunciation quickly?" Sarah's eyes lit up. "Kim, thank you for bringing up pronunciation. This is crucial for effective communication, and I have a technique that can transform your pronunciation faster than you might believe possible. It's called shadowing, and it's like having a pronunciation coach available 24 hours a day." She pulled up her laptop and connected it to the classroom speakers. Shadowing is based on how children acquire perfect pronunciation in their native language. Babies and toddlers spend thousands of hours listening to their parents and unconsciously copying every sound, rhythm, and intonation pattern. We're going to recreate this process, but in an accelerated way. Sarah played a video clip of a Canadian news anchor speaking about the weather. The speaker had clear, neutral pronunciation and spoke at a moderate pace. "The first step in shadowing," she explained, "is finding audio or video content that matches your current level. Not too fast, not too slow, with clear pronunciation that you can understand at least 80% of." She played the clip again and began demonstrating. As the news anchor spoke, Sarah simultaneously repeated every word, matching not just the sounds but also the rhythm, stress patterns, and intonation. It was like watching a vocal shadow. She was perfectly synchronized with the original speaker. "This looks challenging," admitted Luis from Mexico, "but also very interesting." "Let's try it together," Sarah suggested. She played a short, simple clip about Toronto's summer festivals. "Don't worry about understanding every word perfectly. Focus on copying the sounds you hear, even if you don't get them exactly right initially." The first few attempts felt awkward and difficult. My mouth struggled to keep up with the speed, and I felt like my tongue was getting twisted. But Sarah encouraged us. "This difficulty is exactly what you should expect. You're training muscles in your mouth to move in new ways. It's like learning a new sport. Your muscles need time to develop the necessary coordination." After 15 minutes of practice, something amazing happened. I could feel my mouth becoming more flexible, and the English sounds were starting to feel more natural. Kim, who had been silent for most of the course, was suddenly producing clear, recognizable English sounds that amazed everyone in the class. "The magic of shadowing," Sarah explained, "is that it trains multiple aspects of pronunciation simultaneously. You're not just learning individual sounds, you're absorbing the natural rhythm of English, the stress patterns that make English sound fluent, and the intonation patterns that convey meaning and emotion." She shared research showing that students who practice shadowing for just 20 minutes daily for 1 month showed pronunciation improvements equivalent to 6 months of traditional pronunciation lessons. "Here's your homework challenge," Sarah announced. "Find English content you enjoy, YouTube videos, podcasts, Netflix shows with subtitles, and practice shadowing for 15 to 20 minutes daily. Choose content slightly below your current level so you can focus on pronunciation rather than struggling to understand." That evening, I found a YouTube channel featuring travel documentaries about India narrated in clear American English. Since I already knew the cultural context, I could focus entirely on copying the narrator's pronunciation. After 30 minutes of shadowing, I recorded myself reading a paragraph from one of my textbooks. When I compared it to a recording I had made the previous week, the improvement was remarkable. My pronunciation was noticeably clearer and more confident. The following Monday, Sarah introduced us to an important concept: measuring progress effectively. "Learning a language is a long-term project," she said, "and it's crucial to track your improvement in ways that motivate and guide you." She asked the class, "How many of you know approximately how many English words you can recognize and use?" Only 2 students raised their hands, and their estimates were just guesses. "This is a common problem," Sarah explained. "Students often feel like they're not improving because they don't have concrete ways to measure their progress. Today I'm going to show you tools that will help you track your development and set realistic goals." She introduced us to a website called testyourvocab.com, a research-based tool that estimates vocabulary size through a scientifically designed test. This test takes only 10 minutes, and it's surprisingly accurate. You can take it monthly to track your vocabulary growth. I took the test immediately and discovered I knew approximately 3,200 English words. Other students' results ranged from 2,800 to 4,500 words. Sarah explained what these numbers meant. Native English speakers typically know 20,000, 35,000 words, but for effective communication, you need much fewer. With 3,000, 4,000 words, you can handle most daily conversations. With 5,000, 6,000 words, you can discuss complex topics and read most general materials comfortably. She also showed us how to track other aspects of our progress. Speaking fluency. Record yourself speaking about a specific topic for 2 minutes every 2 weeks. Notice improvements in fluency, hesitation, and confidence over time. Listening. Comprehension. Use TED Talks or similar content. Start with talks you can understand about 60–70%. As your comprehension improves, move to more challenging content. Reading speed. Track how long it takes you to read a 500-word article with full comprehension. Faster reading usually indicates better overall English proficiency. Pronunciation. Accuracy. Use voice recognition software, like Google's voice search, to test whether technology can understand your pronunciation clearly. Sarah emphasized setting process goals rather than outcome goals. Don't set goals like, I want to speak perfectly in 3 months. Instead, set goals like, I will read for 30 minutes daily, I will practice shadowing 15 minutes daily, and I will think aloud for 10 minutes daily. Consistent process leads to inevitable improvement. This systematic approach to tracking progress was incredibly motivating. Instead of feeling like I was swimming in an ocean of English without direction, I now had concrete ways to measure and guide my improvement. During my final weeks in Toronto, Sarah introduced advanced techniques for continuing English improvement independently. The methods you've learned here are just the beginning, she explained. The real magic happens when you create a sustainable, enjoyable system for lifelong English development. She taught us about Input Plus One, a concept from language acquisition research. Always consume English content that's slightly above your current level, she explained. If it's too easy, you won't learn anything new. If it's too difficult, you'll get frustrated and give up. Find the sweet spot where you understand about 80–85% and can guess the rest from context. For me, this meant transitioning. Sarah also introduced us to English content immersion, creating an English environment even when living in non-English speaking countries. She showed us how to digital immersion, change all device settings to English, subscribe to English YouTube channels, follow English social media accounts, and use English for internet searches. Media immersion. Watch English movies and TV shows without subtitles, or with English subtitles only. Listen to English podcasts during commute time, and read English books for pleasure. Social immersion. Join online English conversation groups, find language exchange partners, and participate in English-speaking communities related to your hobbies or interests. She emphasized the importance of making English a daily habit rather than a periodic study session. 15 minutes of English contact daily is more effective than 3 hours once per week. Consistency beats intensity in language learning. As my course neared its end, I realized I had achieved something I had never thought possible. English was no longer a foreign language I was studying, but a natural tool I was using to express myself, learn about the world, and connect with others. 6 months after arriving in Toronto as a nervous, hesitant English speaker, I was preparing to return to Mumbai with skills and confidence I had never imagined possible. The transformation wasn't just in my English ability. It was in my entire relationship with the language and with myself. Before coming to Toronto, English felt like a barrier between me and my goals. After learning these natural acquisition methods, English became a bridge to unlimited opportunities. I could now have fluent conversations with native speakers without fear or hesitation, read complex articles, novels and professional materials with full comprehension, understand movies, podcasts, and lectures without subtitles, express complex thoughts and emotions with precision and confidence. Think directly in English without translation from Hindi. But the most important change was psychological. I no longer saw myself as someone trying to learn English, but as someone who communicates effectively in English. This shift in identity made all the difference. The techniques I learned, extensive reading, shadowing, thinking aloud, natural grammar acquisition, and confidence building through real communication became permanent parts of my learning system. I knew that continued improvement would happen naturally as long as I maintained these habits. 6 months later, back in Mumbai, I landed my dream job as a project manager at an international tech company. During my interview, the CEO commented, "Your English communication skills are excellent. You express ideas clearly and confidently." I smiled, remembering my first day at that Tim Hortons in Toronto when I couldn't even order coffee without confusion.